What's happening, everybody? Welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio. Today, Andrew and I are going to do something different. He is going to randomly give me words, and I'm just going to have to relate them to martial arts and carry on a coherent monologue about martial arts.
And have it make sense.
Well, that is the word coherent.
Yeah. That's a big
Right?
word. I didn't understand it.
It's already going off the rails. I'm excited. This is something that we are trying. We have not done this. It could be a disaster, but regardless, you get to be part of it. So welcome and thank you. If you're new to the show, welcome. You've picked a truly strange.
What's likely to be a fun episode.
It should be fun. If you're new to the show, go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. Check out all the episodes we've done. Check out why we do what we do. Go to whistlekick.com. Use the code podcast15 to buy something. Check out all the things that we do, like the Never Settle Awards, Martial Journal, All In Weekend, Free Training Day. What else do? We do a bunch of stuff. Check out all the stuff. Be part of the stuff. Be part of our family. We are here to connect, educate, and entertain. And the connection is kind of the first part. If we don't connect with you, we can neither educate nor entertain you. And we would love to do both. Sometimes simultaneously, as if we could have a lofty goal for this episode, that would be this. Can I find a way to educate you as well as entertain you? In the words of the great KRS-One, edutainment might be the contraction that we could use there. Andrew.
Yes.
Is this a good idea? Or is this going to be?
We will find out.
Show.
Let's face it. If it's really bad, no one will hear it.
Depends on if we get hard up for content at some point.
No, don't tell them that, because then if it is bad and we do release it, they'll be like, "Oh, they're really hard up for content." We're not. We have a list.
They might be thinking that already.
Could be. I have a list. Like people listening won't see, but I have a list on my phone of topics, of ideas, of things to talk about, and my list right now is like 9 or 10. Topics long. We're always looking for more topics. If you have an idea of a show you'd like us to do,
sure,
certainly reach out and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But we were just talking about, let's have fun today. Let's have fun with this one. And we came up with this word association. So I'm going to throw a word out at you. And your goal is to talk about it in a way that makes sense for martial arts. And at some point, I'm just going to give you a new word, and we'll see how it goes. The words are completely random.
I don't know what they are.
He has no idea. I will give the audience a peek behind the curtain. I've written for myself 5 words down, my first 5 starter words, and anything after that, I'm just going to randomly be throwing stuff out.
Winging it.
Yep. So are you ready for your first word?
Hold on. I don't know why I'm yawning. I'm so excited.
Also, a lot of these words, I just looked around my room and it's like, okay, what would be fun for him to talk about? So here's your first word.
Okay.
Iced tea. Iced tea.
Iced tea. Wow. Iced tea. How am I supposed to get that to martial arts? Okay. Well, I could talk about hydration. We could talk about the damages of sweet tea and sugar and how martial arts can help the body become a little bit more insulin resistant over time. But I think I'm going to come at it from a completely different direction. When I was in high school, Snapple was fairly new to the scene. Andrew, you probably remember this too. And there is always a hierarchy of drinks, especially among school children. And Snapple was one of the top drinks. And of the drinks we could purchase at school, it was the top drink. People liked it because it was glass. People liked it because it was new, because it had sugary flavor. Shout out to the strawberry kiwi. That was the one back in the day. But for me, it was the facts, the random facts under the cap. Do they still do that? It was the knowledge that they were throwing at you.
Did you know, real fact number 229, the Caspian Sea is actually a lake?
There you go. Now, at any given time, you don't need to know that the Caspian Sea is actually a lake. And you're probably not going to learn that and internalize it the first time that you hear that fact. But if you are a frequent drinker of Snapple, if you are someone who consumes Snapple on a regular basis, you are likely to bump into that fact a few more times. And eventually, one of those times, you're going to go, you know what? I knew that. And then you'll be watching Jeopardy or out at trivia or just trying to impress someone. And you'll say, you know, the Caspian Sea. Yeah, I've heard of it. Well, here it is on a map. Did you know it's actually a lake? And just like with martial arts, it is that frequent or at least semi-frequent, in the context of martial arts, we call it iterative process of building that education around, it could be a very specific thing. Eventually it leads to a breakthrough. You don't know it, you don't know it, you don't know it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I knew that. And that happens with our forms. It happens with concepts in our sparring. It happens with our techniques. It happens all over the place because it is actually the way that we learn. That frequent exposure ultimately will lead to some internalization at some point of varying degrees. And so we just keep on doing that. And I like the imagery of the cap because we would take those bottles, as I'm sure you do. Do you open the cap and look at the fact before you drink it? I used to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're looking at that cap and you're like, okay, what did I just learn today? Or maybe more appropriate language, what knowledge was I just exposed to? What information was just put in my face? And you read it and you're like, okay.
All right, new word.
Cool.
Tape measure.
Tape measure. You really are just like whatever's around, aren't you?
Yep.
I'm waiting for shoes, socks, and you know who knows where we're going to get with this. Tape measure is about as easy as you get. Measurement, progress. As martial artists, we often think that what we do is so entirely subjective that it can be difficult to measure. And yet there are so many things that we can objectively measure, or at least creating our own subjective measurement such that because it is our own, it can become objective. What if you were to create an assessment, a self-assessment of all the things that you theoretically know, all of your forms? Let's even just limit it to forms. And once a month, I'm going to score myself. How well do I know this form? How well do I do this form? Maybe 5 is amazing and 1 is sucks. And I go through and I give myself a score, and then I compare to last month or last quarter, and I say, you know, these numbers haven't changed. My forms have not gotten better. I could, because I'm the judge here, I get to remove that element of subjectivity because it is completely subjective. So in doing so, it becomes relevant, relationally objective. And I can do that for absolutely everything. What about my punches, my kicks, my blocks? What about scoring? How many punches can I do on the bag with good form in X amount of time? Or how many head level roundhouse kicks can I do in X amount of time? Back when I had my martial arts school, I did bring a little bit of this in. I would have the kids kicking, I think it was a shield. 60 seconds. How many kicks could they do in 60 seconds? And we kept it on a sheet. And they loved it because it helped them see progress. And we all know that one of the most difficult elements running a martial arts school, or even just being a martial artist ourselves, is remaining motivated, keeping some progress going, because the deeper you get, the longer you've been training, the bigger the gaps in between those milestones. The very fact that we use, you know, belts and stripes when we're new as martial artists is the very reason it becomes really hard to do that when we get further on. And it's part of why there's some temptation to maybe escalate that stripe progress amongst some in our community. But it is what it is there. And I think all martial artists and all martial arts schools would be better off if they looked for ways to measure things, whether that be objective or subjective, whether there's scoring. It doesn't have to be competition. It doesn't have to be testing. It doesn't have to be rank. What if, hey, you know what? Next Friday, we're doing our side, round, and hook kick evaluations. What if there's a clipboard? What if you're actually evaluating someone on some scale and you say, here you go. Your roundhouse kick's a 4, your side kick's a 4, your hook kick's a 2. And at the level you're at, you're a brown belt. We want to see that hook kick's got to come up. Now okay. I just have to hold steady with my roundhouse kick and my side kick. I've got to put a bunch more time into my hook kick. It kind of stinks compared to these others. So why not put some time in? I think we're afraid to score things in that way because it can be uncomfortable to tell someone, hey, this is good, this kind of sucks. It's a little bit easier to say, well, you could get better at this. But when they look at a number on a page, which, interestingly enough, is how a lot of jobs do evaluations. It's how academics does evaluations. It's numbers on a page. There's a score there. Yep. There's a reason that it exists so pervasively. There's no reason we can't keep doing it.
All right. Next word, dogs.
I love dogs. Dogs are the best. And growing up, my instructors their house was 2 buildings down. So it was their house. There was a large retirement home. Not quite retirement home. It was assisted living. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And then the community center was the next building. The dog would wander down and into the gym. We use this old community center gym, and sometimes there would be 40, 50 people in there. And the dog, Kara, would wander in, and she would wander through the lines, and we would always get the instruction, don't kick the dog. And it was a really fun moment because it kind of broke inevitably it was in the middle of basics, just often basics, often summer. The dog wasn't wandering down in the winter. The doors would be open in the summer because it was a hot building and we couldn't open the windows. And so the dog would wander in. And it was a fun break. We were still going. We were still working. But that very slight shift made for a completely different experience. And if you smiled at all, because you've had something similar, or you could imagine something similar, I would like to encourage you to consider that even facing a different direction while training, even mixing up the lines, even changing the way the lighting is in the room can lead to something very similar. We get so used to our environment that the environment no longer provides stimulus. It actually becomes like an energy sink. And that's, I think, why a lot of people enjoy going and training elsewhere, because it's just a little bit different. Even doing the same thing. Okay, we're going to go have class outside. It's the same stuff. Yep. Why is outside that big of a deal? It shouldn't be.
Because it's just different.
Because it's just different. And if outside is that big of a deal, you're probably in need of shaking it up inside.
So I know this is supposed to be a word association for you, but I have a fun dog story as well.
I will always listen to fun dog stories.
So some of the listeners may be friends of mine on Facebook. I started a 100-day kata challenge group. And everybody in the group is recording themselves performing a kata or a form or a pumse, whatever you call it. And they're recording one every day and uploading it to this private Facebook group. Doesn't have to be the same form every day. It could be different. And people are doing them in different places in their house or outside or wherever. There's people from all different styles. But there's one woman who often does it in her home or in her garage. And her dog is often running around. And recently she was doing a form. I want to say it was Heian Sandan. But there's a point in the form where you're facing forward and one leg comes up and steps down in front, and then the other leg comes up and steps down, and the dog was in the way, so she just stepped over the dog and just kept doing it but you had to have enough wherewithal to like, okay, am I able to do this? And
Yeah.
sometimes she'll have to modify the form because the dog, because as you said, you can't kick the dog.
Dogs
Uh,
are great at
but
obstacles.
it's been fun to watch. And there's someone else in the group who has a small child running around sometimes while she's doing her forms as well. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Right
all
on.
right,
I
next
dig it.
word,
Okay.
toys. Just toys in general.
Toys. Martial arts weapons are toys because martial arts is fun. And if you don't have fun training, you should probably change your training. Now, that doesn't mean fun has to be playtime fun. It doesn't play. I think the way most of us in the West think of play, we use that word in a dismissive way because for most of us, play is seen as not having consequence or value. And yet we know, I mean, if you ask anyone, what is the first way that children start to understand the world? Is through play. They make games out of everything. When you are entertained, right? Connect, educate, entertain. When you are entertained, you are in a better space to learn. There's a reason that children's television programs are entertaining while also trying to throw information at them in such a way that parents look at it and go, okay, yeah, I'll let you watch that. The kid doesn't watch it because they're learning. Maybe that becomes a secondary consequence and they find value in that, but they watch it because it's fun, because it's of entertainment to them. Martial arts weapons become instruments of play if you approach your training in this way. Now, I've seen people actually, Andrew, I think I've seen you with a balisong, a butterfly knife,
Mm-hmm.
flipping
Yeah.
it around. You're playing with the knife, right? I could pick up tunfa or sai or a stick or a sword and play with it. Now, I could do a form with it, but I could also play with it. I could play my form with it. I can imagine that I'm fighting dragons or monsters or zombies and bring an element of realism into my mind that makes it much more enjoyable. We've talked about the word play as a verb for martial arts expression or participation over the years. And it is the one that, even though it hits my ear wrong, it is still the word that I like best. I could do martial arts, I could practice martial arts, but the word that I think encompasses the most things is play. I play martial arts. And I understand that that word sounds really weird to those of us that have English as our language from which we use martial art. We describe martial arts. But shouldn't it be playful? Shouldn't it be fun? Shouldn't those weapons that I pick up be toys in the expression, in the playtime of martial arts? I think so. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Awesome. Next word, rubber band.
Rubber bands hold things together. An instructor's job is to hold a school together, whether a school owner or a senior student. We all have this job of varying degrees and honestly varying success in holding the culture of a martial arts school together. And if the culture is appropriate for the people that are participating, it facilitates play. Now, we know that there are some people who are more of a rubber band than others. I tend to use the word glue, but
Yep.
rubber band works just as well. There are people, anybody who's ever taught a class knows there are certain students that if they are there, everyone else is better behaved. Things just go better. They contribute an energy to the room. And sometimes it's with kids, sometimes it's with adults. Things flow better. They are rubber bands in and of their own right. The sense that they bring, the energy they bring, the what's the word? I'm struggling for the word. The dynamic is probably the best word that they contribute simply from existing in that room for that period of time is something that is palpable. And not everyone recognizes it if you're not in an instructor role. But the moment you've been an instructor consistently for probably 3 to 6 months, you start to hone in on these people and you start to say, oh, I hope so-and-so is here tonight. Or you see somebody walk in and you're, okay, they're here. I kind of hope either this other person doesn't show up, or if they do, that these other two people do.
Yeah.
Because you start to feel how they balance out. And a rubber band doesn't just sit there. Rubber band stretches, it moves by design. The entire utility of a rubber band is because it is flexible. And the people that are rubber bands have to remain flexible.
All right. Last word, I think, because we're wrapping up here.
Okay.
This is the first one that's not on my list. Canned air.
Anything can be a weapon. I could bludgeon someone with a can of compressed air. I could put the straw in their nose or their ear or their mouth and spray it, and it would be bad for them. I could throw it. There are a variety of ways that we could use a can of compressed air as a martial arts tool. But I think there's a better way for me to talk about a can of compressed air in this context.
Good, because I was going to chastise you for using the cop-out answer, because you could say everything. Rubber band is a weapon. I could use it to shoot it in someone's eyeball. You know, I could hit somebody with a toy, or the tape measure. I could saw somebody with it. So the weapon answer is, I want more than that. Go ahead, go.
Okay. Why do we use cans of compressed air? To clean things, but specifically, why were they invented? Cans of compressed air were invented to clean static sensitive equipment, things for which you would not just generally take a rag and wipe. And I know this because of my time in IT and fixing computers. You don't just take a dust mop and like clean out the inside of a computer. The standards for how you clean the inside of a computer became compromised as computers became less expensive. But when you go back to the days when a computer was $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for a basic home unit, you had to be really particular in how you cleaned it. By the way, never use a vacuum on anything electronic. Okay. A can of compressed air, when you spray it in the setting for which it was designed, removes dust. It removes that layer of schmutz that exists from use. If it was a car, it would be similar to being polished. And it's something that we as martial artists can and should and probably do without even realizing it. To go off and do something on your own and to come back to your instructor and have them evaluate what you're doing and say, oh, okay, you're getting it, but why don't you try doing this little thing? You're making these small adjustments. You don't polish a car where the paint has completely fallen apart, it's chipped, it's scratched, someone, dragged keys down the side. You're not going to polish that car. But when the paint is in really good shape, then you polish it. You're using that can of air to expose the shiny underneath, the functional components. You're not going to use a can of compressed air on a broken computer. So just as you would do that, you can bring the best little bits that are hiding under the surface to light in your martial arts skill.
Nice. Nailed it. Awesome. Well done, my friend. Well done.
Thanks. That was different.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners and or viewers, was that of entertainment? Did you perhaps learn something? Do you want us to do this again? Before we went, well, we're not live with this, but before Andrew and I started this, we mentioned this could be something where we could get all of you involved if we keep doing it. If we do these live, or you could just simply send words to him and he could pick them and I can just riff. We're using this as a bit of a warm-up today before we record a few other episodes, and it got me going. Like I dug this. This, for me, this is fun.
It was good.
I hope you had fun as well.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. If you want to support, if that connect, educate, and entertain really means something to you, join the Patreon. $2 a month. Patreon.com/whistlekick. A shout out to all of you who have been in and remain in the Patreon. I appreciate all of you. I know some podcasts name the names. We're not going to do that. I don't. That's never quite felt right to me. So we don't do that. Okay. But I think anybody who's in the Patreon knows that if they message me, they get a response pretty darn quickly. So not that I officially promise any kind of response time ever for anything, but our Patreon contributors are taken care of. I think that's the best way I could say it. Of course, there are plenty of free ways you can help us out, reviews and posts and following and sharing and things of that nature. If you want the whole list, go to the family page, whistlekick.com/family. If you have topic or guest suggestions, you can email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com, unless it is for the Q&A episodes. And then you got to go to Andrew direct, andrew@whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. Andrew, is that it? Do we have anything else to say today?
No, that's great, man.
All right. That closes up another episode of Martial Arts Radio. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.